Hello, it's Jay here for another waffle. It's been about 2 weeks since my last one, which is fine because nothing much happens in my life, so you might as well just give myself a little space in there. We had a visit from our young niece on my wife's side of the family, which is always great. She is 3 years old, a bundle of energy, which actually managed to defeat Theo, our little 1-year-old Havanese, who is bursting with energy, but no, was completely defeated by the niece, who exhausted him to the point where he jumped up on Jaw's lap and was like, I'm done, which is good. And that was a good learning opportunity for my niece. Got to learn, like, oh, Theo's a little bit tired, we're gonna let him rest, and Uncle Jay can take over. Old arthritic Mr. J can take over. Yeah, so that was nice and fun. It is. I'm outside because I feel like strongly my waffle videos should happen outside. I am braving the elements, which means for Victoria there's rain. We are whinging a lot here on the West Coast. We had a good thing of about a week or two of just sunshine. If you look in our backyard, the blossoms are out. There's flowers, which hi Kelly, hi Jason. I know that you're still under snow. We on the other hand in Victoria are complaining about rain, terrible rain and warm conditions. It's just awful here. So, and speaking of Jason, he one of the hosts of March of the Mammoth. I am continuing on. Hopefully by the end of the day I'll have gotten about 300 pages through A Place of Greater Safety, the novel about the French Revolution by Hilary Mantel, which it's not as gripping as her Cromwell trilogy. It's focusing on a lot of different fellows, and while they're all as kind of complex and are undoubtedly, since a lot of them are going to be participating in the reign of terror kind of idealistic fervor of their ideas grinding up large numbers of human beings, they're a complicated bunch, and they're people that you kind of have to keep in mind. These are going to turn into, a good number of them are going to be mass murderers, and some of them are going to be the victims of mass murder. Though the ones who you see that are going to get chopped up are also the ones who have participated in a horrendous system of, systematically starving and killing peasants and those beneath them in the great triangle of society. So there is that. I look at recent, and it's the striking thing is with a lot of these characters is they're sort of just like it's striking about how much they are just sort of regular people. Like Robespierre is sort of just kind of a bit of a prudish lawyer, bit of a kind of a straight-laced guy, and it's like, how that turns out. And that's as an architect of one of the reign of terror of the first kind of secular state of mass executions. It's somewhat chilling there, and you start looking at people in our own society today who have very idealistic notions, and you can start to see some of the fear that white people like myself who are living in rich, wealthy countries might feel kind of a little bit of concern, a little bit of fear over people like that, because people like that have done a lot of stuff in the name of peace and justice and fraternity, have perpetrated some as equally nasty shit as people on the right. And I would count myself as someone who's probably fairly left-leaning, though I'm a middle-class apathetic dude, so, you know, take that as what you will about exactly where I'm at. Oh, Theo is got a nice piece of wood to chew, which, Theo, I don't know. Here, let's help Theo out there. Hey, Theo, what you got? You got the wood. The wood. That's probably not. I'm gonna get splinters. I'm gonna get splinters that way. No. Ah. So yes, yeah. So that's my that particular part of my reading. My reading. There's other reading which I won't bore you with. At the moment, you know, I'm not gonna say anything about Ukraine other than fuck. It is horrible. Fuck, it is horrible on an individual level for the people of Ukraine. Fuck, it is, you know, in some ways as world events, you feel like, oh, okay, we got through Trump part 1, and now we've got Putin, and what seems to be a kind of determination to throw things around and be a macho leader in a way that brings us that much closer to fucking exterminating all of ourselves, which is concerning on a macro level. So there is all that. Yeah, and you know, closer to home, coronavirus continues along. The mask mandates have come down here. It's now optional to wear a mask, which means because of my particular home circumstances and wanting to protect people whom I live with, that means masks are still going on here. So that is continuing on. Oh, and the long international nightmare is over. Steve Donahue has returned to BookTube after a day away because of technical difficulties with a live stream, which I think I'm a more seasoned Steve Donahue watcher, the great booktuber and book reviewer Steve Donahue. Theo now has another piece of wood, which he's gonna see if he can't interest Shira, our doodle, in playing with him over. Yeah, so he has the same relation with technology as I think Ja does, which is it doesn't do what they want because technology is dumb. It's great, but it's also really dumb, and when it doesn't work, and they get really frustrated. And I'm now, and you know, he does the whole video of like, I'm leaving BookTube. That's it. I'm never doing this live stream again, and I might delete my channel. It's like I can now put myself as a veteran Steve watcher, someone I don't know personally. I only know him as a lurker viewer, which is where I'm happy. And yes, he's decided to come back. Theo, you don't want to get. You're going to get splinters. You're going to get splinters. You don't want to get splinters. I'm going to hold on to that too. All right. They're really. Theo is still young enough to definitely find all sorts of stuff to entertain himself with. But yes, I'm a veteran enough Steve Donahue watcher that when he kind of makes these blanket declarations, I go, okay, so we'll start the clock. See, will it be 1 day or 2 days? And after 1 day of absence, he is back saying, okay, I got talked down. Which isn't to say, like, you know, all the YouTube stuff isn't infuriating. It is an amazingly complex system, and it's a miracle that it actually works as good as it does. We're having horrible difficulties with our internet and TV provider at the moment, and every time you see a little system, relatively just only works in, you know, one nation, and you think about how basic and terrible that is compared to something like YouTube or, you know, other YouTube, Facebook, all the giant tech companies, and how wonderfully customized these things are to sucking us all in and making us waste all our time. It's like, oh God, just you get a local internet provider and it's just like, oh my God, their website is so basic. But it's only that way because you're comparing it to something like YouTube or well, I assume Facebook or Twitter. I only actually interact with YouTube, and on a very basic level. YouTube, which actually I did a review of The Codebreaker, which is a book about a CRISPR, a new form of doing engineering, genetic material. Amazing, revolutionary. Dudna, the one of the lead scientists, she and her co-discoverer, they won the Nobel Prize for discovering how CRISPR can be used to edit genes in a much more efficient and accurate way. But I did a video on that, and I did a couple of different versions, and I posted them up in a place where you don't see them here. But I did a long version, which I got a community strike for, and it's interesting because I assume there's no actual people who actually watch that video. I'm assuming it's an algorithm, and I think I said a couple of different words in that video that when you add them all together equaled someone deciding I was somebody spreading misinformation about the illness. God, I probably already said the name of the illness in this video, but that I was spreading misinformation, whereas I think I talked about it very tangentially, and I definitely wasn't spreading there wasn't particularly any information about the illness in the video. But no, it got a community. I got a warning, and it got taken down. And there's a thing. It's like, oh, you can appeal. So I appealed, putting a thing, and I said, okay, well, if I don't get a response back for 4 or 5 weeks, then I'll know that an actual person reviewed this video on this completely nothing channel. I got a response back like the very next day, which is like, okay, this went back through a computer, and it was like, no, you're denied, and there's no recourse for appealing the denial of the appeal, which is fine. I don't care. It was a longer version, which I already thought was like, wow, this is like a half-an-hour book review. And I go off on all these tangents. So I had also posted the version that I ended up, releasing, which doesn't have that particular tangent or a bunch of other tangents in it. And yeah, that video is completely fine. That review is up on this channel now, and it's all good. But yes, YouTube is a gigantic system, and they're figuring out ways of, trying to semi-regulate, be as responsible as they can get away with, without, be the least amount of responsible for the least amount of money to them, because they want to make money. But it's like, this is a gigantic system, and it's one of those things of like, I was sort of irked. Like, somebody should watch that video. I didn't. But, you sort of have to take it as it is a giant system, and they're not going to particularly they don't have the time or the money to particularly parse my words on a irrelevant review of a book. I am like the least important. So they use a computer. That computer says, okay, you said this number of words, you mentioned this country that perhaps the illness originated in, therefore you're probably talking about that stuff. Just to be safe, we're going to squash you, which is what they did. It's only happened I've been on YouTube for 4 years, and this is the first time something like this has ever happened to me before. It does make me strangely aware now that in addition to all of the 4 or 5 people who watch this video, there is a computer out there who is parsing my words and isn't particularly interested in the meaning of those words, but is more interested in connecting words together. And if this number of words comes up in its algorithm, comes up in its search, and they're flagged words, well, then that's it. You're done. It's funny. I now feel a slight kinship with another fellow booktuber who really is being vocal and really does sound off on all this stuff. Is a discoverer of the Nile in a past life, and Yeah, it's like I kind of shook my head at his reviews, his videos there. Some of them were pretty wince-worthy, I felt, but you know, hey, it's kind of invigorating, interesting to hear from him. I know he is a smart, opinionated guy, but those videos did rapidly get taken down, and there's a little bit of a defiance there that you can see lighting up his eye. And it's like me bumbling, inoffensive, milquetoast, whiny liberal, middle of the road, ineffectual idiot me accidentally blundered into that in some way, which is interesting. And it's an interesting thing about this space. It's a good thing to know about this space. This is not we're not standing out in a public square proclaiming. I need to be, it's always good to have, I think it was good to have a reminder that I am in somebody's mall, somebody who YouTube owns this mall, and if I do something they don't like, they have the perfect freedom to say, nope, you're not doing that, squoosh. And, you know, because it's a private space we're in here. This is not, I don't consider this free speech that has been squashed. I think it's kind of funny that a computer decided suddenly that I was spouting off radical ideas. I think if you've watched this channel for any amount of time, you know this isn't the place where you're not going to find radical ideas. You're going to find muddled ideas, which hopefully if you watch me long enough, you know my heart's in the right place. But yeah, okay, well, my heart is in Victoria at the moment with the rest of my body, amongst all the blossoms, amongst the poor dogs, the poor dogs. Come here, poor dogs. Look to the camera. Look to the camera, poor dogs. Yes. You want to go inside? We're very wet. We're spoiled Victorian dogs. All right. I've been Jay. More videos later.